Hey, I'm Leslie, and welcome to week 7. Telling people about Jesus can sometimes feel overwhelming. Like, where do we even begin? But oftentimes, we make it a lot more complicated than it has to be. In fact, on the last night of Jesus' life, he tells his disciples exactly what to do to show the world that they are his disciples. And it has nothing to do with the right words to say. Instead, it has everything to do with action. More specifically, with love. You don't have to be great with words, a confident speaker, or a persuasive person to tell people about Jesus. You can tell people with your love for them. If we show love to our friends, teachers, and yes, even our family, then others will see Jesus through us. So I want you to try this week. Try showing the love of Jesus by doing something kind for at least 3 people. It's week 7, all right? So remember, a party starter lives like others are watching the example that you're setting. Even when they aren't watching, they know that they are here for a purpose and can use their influence and gifting to point others to God. Hey everybody, I'm Leslie, and I am so glad that you're here as we continue starting the party in our latest series called, Start the Party. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about the idea that sometimes it takes a party to experience the life that Jesus promised. We're defining a party as any effort to celebrate, serve, or make a big deal out of each other in a way that adds value to life. And we want to invite you to be a party starter, someone who is preparing the space for the party and making space for others to join in. You see, when we start the party, we get to experience the full life that God promises. A life with the volume turned all the way up. A life that is so much more than you expected. A life that has more adventure, a life with more excitement, a life with more purpose. And who wouldn't want that? Okay, and that kind of reminds me of a story. You'll see what I mean in a second. See, when I was in high school, I attended a regular public high school, but my 2 sisters, they went to a performing arts high school. So if you're picturing High School Musical, the musical, the series, or Glee, think 10 times smaller, but 100 times more inspiring. I mean, picture the most talented people putting on the most amazing performances week after week. There were ballerinas, tap dancers, singers, orchestra people, lighting and stage design people, costumers, illustrators, graphic designers. And the thing is, they all seemed so confident and creative and oddly powerful for being a high schooler. I mean, when my family would go to see their performances, this school full of kids, they would literally hop on stage, perform an opera aria perfectly, saunter off, change costumes, and then appear in the next scene as the lead actress. And then the next week, they were like writing a book or something. I mean, Donald Glover, the Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, the poet, singer, writer, actor, producer, that guy, he went to this school, and you know how talented he is. That's what I'm talking about, those kinds of people. I mean, I was watching all of these influential people creating all these memorable moments on stage and off. Meanwhile, I was just somewhere fiddling around trying to teach myself basic guitar. I was convinced that I would never be a party starter. One thing we see all around us is the power of influence. Maybe you saw it when your 4th period math teacher became a fashion influencer on TikTok, or a sophomore in your JV volleyball team got turned into a meme, or your 14-year-old stepbrother became a famous YouTuber by streaming their Minecraft sessions. Just your average everyday person, and then all of a sudden, you watch as this person gains thousands, if not millions of followers on social media. And suddenly, their opinions, decisions, and influence seems to really matter. Then there's the influence in the comments section. You have the pinned comment getting thousands of likes, the troll comments getting hundreds of replies, and then some comments just being repeated over and over and over again. And then suddenly user 38429104392 has influence too. On top of all of that, we have the power of liking a post, a comment, or a reply. We aren't the ones necessarily saying anything, but with just 2 taps of the screen, then we have influence. But why is it that with all of this power at our fingertips, it can still feel like we don't have what it takes to be a party starter? Maybe you don't think that you have enough influence on the world around you. So why should you care about starting the party for others if not that many people are even paying attention to you? Why should you worry about your choices and behaviors if you don't have a ton of people following your example anyway? Or maybe you've just never thought much about your influence. If you're honest, you aren't thinking a lot about the way you live or how your life might impact others. You've got enough on your plate and you're just trying to get by. Or maybe you see that you have a lot of influence, but it feels way too high pressure to know what to do or what to say. So you decide there's no point in trying in the first place. Like I said, I get it. I've struggled to believe that I have what it takes to be a party starter, that my words, actions, behaviors, choices could have any impact on the world around me at all. But what if we're wrong about that? I mean, what if what we do with our influence actually matters? What if you could use your teenage years to make a difference in the life of someone else? What if having influence isn't really about us at all? What if you really have what it takes to be a party starter? Today, we're gonna look at something Jesus said that's connected to this whole idea. It's found in the book of Matthew, which was written by one of Jesus's friends named, well, you guessed it, Matthew. He was one of the 12 closest friends and followers of Jesus. This means that Matthew was with Jesus, lived alongside him, and saw Jesus's influence firsthand. Today, we're gonna look at a part of one of the most famous talks that Jesus gave during his time on earth. It's known as the Sermon on the Mount because, well, Jesus was teaching to his close followers plus a crowd that had gathered on a mountainside. I think the people came to hear what Jesus had to say because at the time, so much of what Jesus was saying wasn't what they expected to hear. See, even though Jesus would often teach about familiar ideas, he would take them to the next level by presenting them in an unexpected way. Jesus changed the game by showing people back then and us today what it really means to live a life that honors God. So, let's take a look at some of what Jesus shared with the people on the mountain that day and what it means to start the party with their life and their faith. Here's what he said. "You are the light of the world. Like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house." Right away, Jesus uses a pretty obvious example. He's making the point that a city built on a hill would be really easy for other people to see. Jesus went on to expand this idea by bringing up a lamp as a symbol to represent this idea. People didn't have electricity back then, so when the sun would go down, darkness would take over if they didn't have lamps to light their homes. So wouldn't it be strange to cover the lamp once it was lit? Then no one could see the light. Okay, I have these lights. Here we go. And if we were to turn off the lights, where would your eyes be drawn? Directly to the light, right? In darkness, light really stands out. So, I mean, if it was dark, would it make sense for me to cover this light? I don't think so. I mean, this is what Jesus was saying. We are to shine brightest where it is darkest. Okay. Let's turn on the lights and take a look at what Jesus says next. "In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father." Now, Jesus tells us how to shine. Jesus has already said that we are the light of the world. Like those cities on a hill or those lamps in a dark room, we are the ones who get to shine the light of God's love into the world. Okay, for just a second, let me talk to those of us who consider ourselves Jesus followers. How do we shine that light? Like, what's the practical side of it? We do that with the way we live, with the way we use our words, our actions, our gifts, our influence for good. Because when we do that, it points to something bigger than ourselves. It points to God's love at work in the world. When we realize that our actions, our words, and our behaviors can influence other people and point them toward God, it changes the way we see ourselves and it changes the way we live. In other words, a party starter lives like others are watching. And if you're here and you're unsure of what to think about all this God, church, Jesus, Bible stuff, I get it. It is all good. Just know that if you've always assumed that Christians were the people who are just supposed to be good and follow a bunch of rules, that's not really what Jesus asks us to do. He simply asks us to shine a light and start the party. And for those of you who are Christians, this may feel like pressure, like a ton of pressure, right? If we're supposed to be a light to the world and make sure we're living like others are watching what we do and what we say, does that mean that we can't make a mistake? That we have to get it all right all the time, else people will think poorly of God or Jesus? Of course not. We're never gonna get it all right all the time. But that's not what being a party starter is about. God's Spirit is already working in the world around us all the time. In fact, that's why we often ask this question: where did you see God today? It's a way to help us open our eyes to see the goodness and love of God already at work in the world. And being a party starter who shines light into the world really just means that you use what you have to help others see the work that God's Spirit is already doing. You're shining a light, not on your own good works, but on the good that God is already doing. And here's what I love about all of this. See, no matter our insecurities, no matter our doubts, no matter how much influence we think we have or don't have, Jesus is reminding us that we have a purpose. And that purpose is to shine light on all that God is doing in our lives and in the world around us, to use our lives, our talents, and our abilities to point others to God, to truly live like other people are watching our example. So how can you do that? How can you live in a way that shines a light to the world around you? Here's how I'd encourage you to think about it. First, just ask yourself this question and really think about the answer. Where do I have influence? I mean, consider, where do you spend a lot of time? Who are you with on a regular basis? Who might be looking up to you? Who is listening to what you have to say? This could be in your home, with your family, or in your small group at church, or on your social media platform, or on your team, or just in your friend group. I know some of you may not think that you have much influence at all. Even if it's just with one person, that is a big deal. You have what it takes to be a party starter. And that means that you have influence to point others to God. Okay, next, I want you to ask yourself this: how can I be a light? What would it look like to use the influence you have to be a light? How can you use your words, your actions, your choices, your time, your gifts to shine a light in this world? You don't have to be perfect. Small, simple steps can make a big difference. Remember, a party starter lives like others are watching. A party starter uses their influence to shine a light on God's work in the world. And that's what I hope all of us will choose to do this week. Today, I hope you'll start in your small group, because in that group, you have the opportunity to be a light, to use your influence to help others do the same, to decide together that you're going to be party starters who live like others are watching. So when you head to small group, think about this question: what's one way I can be a light in this world?